Hey guys, in today's episode we're going to continue with our Getting Started series by looking at navigation. We're going to start with our data, establish a good pattern, and build it out into a functional component that you can use throughout your application. All right, coffee's hot. Let's get started. Hey, before we get into the code, I just wanted to go ahead and show you what it is we're going to try and build today. So as you can see here, I have a Power App set up with logo on top and the navigation right below it. So you see here we have a collection of nodes, a main, a search, an info, one that's disabled. And as you can see by clicking, we have navigation taking place. We have the disabled button with nothing taking place, colors changing, icons. It's just really a decorated navigation. Of course, you can make this as elaborate as you want, but this is enough to give us an idea of what it is we're trying to put together today. All right, so let's hit the code and let's see how we put this together. All right, so let's look at the data that we're going to need to build out our navigation. Again, our navigation is data-centric, so we need to go ahead and get that data model set up to help us get this navigation to where we want it to be. So looking at any navigation, there are two main elements that you need no matter what. That's going to be the title and a destination screen, because we want to know, what are we clicking and where is it going to go when we click it. So at the minimum, we need those two things. We need an icon. We like pretty pictures. We like to be able to hammer home what it is that node does, so we have an icon that goes with it. We need a transition style. We're going to use the navigate function to go from screen to screen to screen within our navigation. So the second property in the navigation function is a transition style. So we want to make sure we have the ability to set that within our data. The display order, of course, the navigation order matters, and we want to be able to control that with relative ease. The next two are ones that I put in is enabled and is active. Now, is enabled is like we see here on the disabled node. Is it a node we can click? I put these in because I have applications that I have built so where the navigation is not necessarily a way to maneuver through the site, but is almost a breadcrumb type feature that the users use to go from section to section to section in an intended order. So there are times where I want to show the user what they're doing, but I don't want them to be able to click on it yet because they've not yet completed earlier steps. So I like to be able to disable but leave visible different nodes in the navigation, which is what inactive then covers. Is instead of simply disabling the node, it determines whether that node is visible at all. Is active is going to be used in a filter function as only ones where is active is true. This helps not only keep some nodes you may need to bring back if temporarily need to pull them away, keeps them within your data so you don't have to store those off in a text file somewhere, but gives you a way within the code of the Power App to show and hide different navigational elements. So those are our core. And that gets us a navigation, but of course we need to pretty it up a bit, which leads us to colors. So this is where you can get as deep into the rabbit hole as you may or may not want to go, because there are a lot of colors you can set, and they're not just here, I need this color or that color, but it's the state of which those colors are shown that also matters. For example, so we know we're going to need a text color. We need to know what color the main text in our navigation is. But also, we need a selected color and a disabled color. So as the state of our nodes change, the color that goes with it also changes. If you note here, the selected first node is black on more of a goldenrod, where the unselected nodes are white on this light black. So you need to be able to set those, because as the transition goes, one color for text isn't going to cut it. You also need a fill color. Let's say that goldenrod and that light black need to be able to be set. But like the text colors, you need the selected and disabled versions of them. Finally, we have an icon. We need the icon color. And like the text and the fill, those also need selected and disabled options. Yes, that is a lot to put in one thing just for navigation. But again, we're setting up our data to have the most flexible possible navigation component that we can put together. So we want to be able to cover our bases and have these elements, at least to get us started, to build what we see here. In the process of filming this, I've thought of a few others, but we're going to save those for another episode forthcoming. So these are the points we need. Now, if we were coding this solution, then obviously we'd be using a language like a C# or a JavaScript if we were building a navigation for a traditionally programmed element. So how would that look like if we did that? So if we were doing, say, C#, we could set up an object that essentially described our node, and it would use the same things. We would see them as strings, screens, icons, transition elements. These would be, of course, other classes that we would reference, but this would be kind of how we would set up our data. No, it's not perfect, but at least gives us an example of what a truly coded solution would look like. Of course, we can't do that. So what we're going to use in our Power App is a collection. And we're going to populate that with our JSON. We're going to do the collect method in the app on start. Yes, this means we're going to hand code all this data and put it in app on start. So one would be asking, why are we not using a SharePoint list, store the data outside of our Power App, and be able to make changes without having to republish? Normally, I'd be all about that. But right now, SharePoint list or SQL, I like to use SharePoint, but SharePoint, of course, as we all know, does not have elements like a screen, a transition, or an icon. All it can do for us, for the most part, is text, and that doesn't help. We're going to have to hard code it. It's not my favorite, I'll be honest with you, but if you think about it, navigation, if you make a change to your navigation, a significant change to the overall data, you're going to be republishing the app. You're making a significant change. So this is a trade-off that I have accepted because, like the color elements that we went over in a previous episode, these aren't going to change much unless essentially I'm doing an almost version level change for my Power App. So I've accepted that we're going to code it within the app itself just because it's not going to change. So let's take a look at setting that up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do, as mentioned, is establish our data for our navigation. Now, in a previous episode, we talked about setting up colors and getting a theme established, and I've gone ahead and put a very simple one in today with just some basic colors that we're going to be using. So if you need to see about colors, check the other episodes about our Getting Started series and pick out the Setting Up Color Themes episode. So what we need to do now is set up our navigation collection. We do clear collect. All navigation. So we are going to do that. Yay. Okay. Get this set up in a nice, neat way. So we had talked earlier in the video about what nodes we're going to need, and then this is where we are going to establish it. So let's go ahead and get these in. We're going to need a node title, and we're going to start, it's a string, call it main. We're going to need a destination, and this is going to be the screen that we are going to transition to, call that sMain. Now you can see on the left I've established 4 screens that we're going to use for this navigation. sMain, information, search, and one just titled bad. We're just going to use those as our basis today for navigation. And that's really what we need to start, of course, but we're going to go forward with the rest of the cannot type today. That's always a good sign. So we're going to use the home icon here. transition none. Now I want to stop here and just point out that this is what's nice about JSON in Power Apps, is that it's not just text. If you notice here, we're adding text in one node, a screen in another, an icon in a third, and a transition method in the fourth. So these are things, like we said, we can't put in a SharePoint list, but we can put here. So where I don't necessarily like hard coding everything in an app, this does give us the flexibility. So this, like we said before, this is the trade-off we're going to make. Continuing forward, we have display order. It's going to be an integer. Oops, need a comma. We have is enabled. That's true. Is active. That is also true. And now we're going to get into our colors. We have our text color, and this is going to be navigation node color. So this uses our theme within our collection. So we've established our theme, we have our colors, and now we are reusing those in our navigation collection. So the benefit here is, if we need to change colors, if for whatever reason the whole schema changes, we simply change our colors in our theme and the navigation follows suit. So we need to go through navigation node selected color, disabled, disabled color. So we've established our text color, and now we're going to do the same thing for both our fill color and our icon color. I'm going to get this typed in, be right back. Okay, miracle modern editing, here we are. Wasn't going to make you watch me type. But what you see is we have done text color, which we saw before, as well as its selected and disabled versions. We have the fill color, which we are going to use to fill the background of our particular node, and of course our icon color, both in a selected and disabled setting. Now this gives us one node. We run on start, we view our collections, we see we have our one node, that's been there, good, and that's there. Now we come in here, we simply copy one node, paste in the next one. This is into the information screen. And to make these new nodes, we are simply going through and adding in a new record. We do the same for search. Search, that is 3. And finally, we are going to take care of our bad node, which will be our disabled example. Bad. We'll use the lock, that'll be our fourth. And here, we will set false for enabled. Again, we will rerun our onStart. We validate our collection. We have 4 nodes. All is well with the world. Now that we have our data, let's do something with it. Now, we are going to base this on a gallery, of course, but we are going to build it in a component because we want reuse. We don't want copies of a gallery scattered about throughout each screen. So we're going to go to our components. We're going to make a new component. We're going to call him Com Navigation Original. Now we want this to be the full width of our screen. I'm currently using a Canvas app and a tablet layout, so 1366 is our default, and we're just going to go ahead and put a 200 height. So this gives us a nice width. Now if you remember from the other example that we gave, this was more than just navigation. This was also the icon for the header. So we're going to put that in first. We come in here, we get media, we get an image, drop that in the corner, spread it out, and I've already gotten my logo, ding. And now we are going to do our navigation, and that is going to be a blank horizontal gallery because we want it to spread out fully wide. All right, we pick our call navigation for our elements. We drop it in where we need it. We do, well, I want a little overlap, and that's so our background color bleeds seamlessly into our logo to make sure everything is where we need it. So we have image header over our gallery, which we'll rename gal navigation. So it's blank. We got to do stuff with it. So what is the first thing we're going to need? Well, of course, we're going to drop in an icon. Find a nice cozy spot for it. And we are going to drop in a label. It's about all the room we need, so we'll bring them back that way. We see here label title, icon, and we just simply go from here and start populating it with things from our gallery. Since galleries are global throughout a Power App, we can reference them within our component. Yes, it's making use of a global variable. Again, another thing I'm not a big fan of, but in this case, it serves our purpose. So we see here the default icon add. Node icon. Boom, we have our icons. We want to come here, this item, node title. Immediately we have navigation. We see here we don't need all that room, so we're going to button it up a little bit. We want to go ahead and make that nice and neat. Yes, I'm being picky, but we want to go ahead and get that down. So we have our nav. We can see how this works. So if we go back to our screens, we can go here. We can now add our custom navigation. Boom, we have nav. So now we need to start interacting with our navigation. So we're going to go back to our components, and we need to have an idea of color. So what are we going to do? Let's start with the easy decorations of our icon. So our icon color, boom, red. Our text color, it's white, because that is our selected text. And now we need to be able to color the background of our node. Now the background of a given node is done with template fill, and this is this item fill color. Boom. So now we're looking a little bit better. Okay, but you see we have this little bit of white here. That is taken care of. Oops, I gotta move me. And we have template padding. We drop that to 0. And now we're buttoned up a little tighter. Let me put me back. Okay, so our navigation is looking a little bit better. But we have two things that we need to tackle, and that is, well, what is the selected node, and how do we get rid of this white bar here? It looks a bit unsightly. Now to do that, we are going to make use of properties within our component. So the first thing we're going to do is do one custom property, excuse me, and we're going to call it navigation fill. It's going to be a color, raise that, create, and we're going to create another one called selected title, and that's going to be text. Now what we're going to do with these, as the names of these variables would indicate, navigation fill is a color we're going to use to just be the default background for our gallery. So this white bar will match whatever color we want it to. And then selected title will be sent in by the component on a given page to let us know which is the clicked on title for, or the needed title for a given screen. All right, so we come in here. What do we do with that? First things, we're going to select our gallery and do a really quick fill with navigation fill. Now it's black. We haven't set this color. The component, of course, is using generic, so it doesn't match, but I'm not overly worried about that. The next thing we're going to do is come back to our template fill, and we're going to take this fill color and we're going to do work with it. So we're going to say if this item.node title is equal to com navigation dot selected title. So this would be our selected node. If it's selected, we want our color to be item.fill selected. If not, we're just going to use fill color, and we're going to end that. So nothing changes here because we're in a component. But if we go back to our screen, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go borrow this color right here. Oops, navigation node fill. So we're going to come back here, and we see we have our properties. So this is going to be var theme.colors.navigation node fill. And we see immediately we've matched, so we know we're doing good. And now we need to tell the Power App or the component what node we are on. So we know we're on main. We're going to come back here to selected title main. Oh, look at that. Our node is now selected, giving us an indication of what page we are on. So this is good. Now from here, we have our base done. Okay, the component works. We're not done with it, but it's in a spot where we can come in here and we make a copy of our existing navigation. I usually do this when the properties are done because I'm going to cheat and kind of carry some of them forward with me. So I do a Control-C to copy that. I go to Info, I paste. And from here, all we have to do is do our selected title, in this case, Info. We see that it moves over. Of course, we're going to retitle it just because. Search, exact same thing. Change our title to search. And of course, repeat on bad. Now, of course, you're going to go through and rename all your components. I'm going to skip that for right now because you see what we're supposed to do here. So now let's add an action. So we go to our component, we catch our node, and now we want to look into our onSelect. What this will do, we want to use our navigate function. We're going to do this item, node, and node transition. So we're going to use two other properties that we passed in, of course, the screen destination and the transition method. So now if we go back and we play, we should see as we go through, proofs in the pudding, search, bad, info, main. We got it. We have navigation. So if we look at our fill area, there's still a couple things we have to do. First, let's look at our items. We're only using our collection. This is not everything we need because we have two properties that we want to account for. One is active. Do we even want to show the node? And two, we have a display order, so we're going to need to do some sorting. So we're going to do a sort and a filter on our call. Our filter will be is active equals true, and our sort is going to be based on display order ascending. All right, so we got our elements back. We're good there. Now the next thing, if we look at our template fill again, we've done a pretty good job, but we're missing a state. Okay, so we know this one is selected, and we know that the fill color is the not selected, but we have another case. if this item dot is enabled, so we want the ones that are disabled to show with the disabled background color. So if it's enabled, we do our color. If it's not, we want fill color disabled. So what this will do is give us our background color for the nodes that aren't quite accessible yet. We see here this one is gray, even in the component, because we already know that by data this one has been turned off. So we see what that's going to look like. Verify on the screen that even when we run, we have, now we can still click on it, and we're going to fix that right now. But we see that the colors do change based on where we go. Okay, so now we're going to look at our template fill, because that carries with it a nice little chunk of logic that we're going to reuse. So what do we know that we need to change? Well, we need to change just about all the colors, right? So first, we have our icon color. Well, that's icon color, of course, but we want icon color everywhere. So we're going to use that same selection logic in a couple of different places. We have icon color, we have text color. So again, take that, and instead of fill, we're going to do text everywhere. We're going to learn to type apparently first. It's going to be a challenge. And finally, we're going to on select here. So if we go to our on select, we have navigate. Now, let's park that for a minute and look at our logic. Navigation is essentially, do we want to enable the click button? So in that case, we don't care if it's selected. Honestly, truthfully, I really don't. So we can get rid of that. Now we just have, are we enabled or not? And if we are, we want to be able to navigate as we had previously done. If we are not, then we're simply going to false that. So now we've used that same logic, we've put it in our buttons, so now we should have a disabled button that we can use. Go back here. What we have done is we have set in our component the on select. If we see here, our node, our on select is based on if the button is enabled. So when we go to our screen, we hit play, information is good, search is good, bad does nothing. So we've totally disabled that particular node based on our data. Now to show the flexibility, again, because we are data-based, if people who are in control of the app, our users, decide that, for example, search should be in front of information. Instead of going back in and recompiling, we could say, that's now the third node, that's now the second node, and oh, by the way, we like this screen. So we're going to go ahead and re-enable it. All we have to do is change on start, rerun it, and now we see we have search second info, bad is re-enabled, and if you notice, it is truly clickable. So we have built our navigation, all based on data, now as a component that we can reuse screen after screen after screen as more of an object that is more convenient for us. But that's it. We see that we have our navigation. It is based on data. I hope you gained something from this. I learned even a couple little things in going through this, refining some of the things I've done. So I look forward to the comments, some of your suggestions to see if we can't improve what's here and make an even better navigation. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.